There are wild beasts that show more empathy for their offspring than you showed for Lazaro. And the jury, having found you guilty on count 1, I adjudicate you guilty, I sentence you to life in prison.
This video will make you cry. It is one of the worst true crime stories I've ever told. I couldn't even get through the research. It is that damning. So please watch with caution. Now, Ana Maria Cardona. She lived with Fidel Figueroa, who was a known drug dealer in Miami. They had one child together. They were also raising another child from Ana's prior relationship. At the time, the couple was expecting their second child, who would be named Lazaro Figueroa. But 1 month before Lazaro was born, his father Fidel was murdered. Eventually, Lazaro was born in 1987, and his father Fidel left a substantial sum of cash upon his death. Ana, the mother, spent the money in a short period of time. During this period, Lazaro and his siblings were taken by the Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services due to neglect. Ana would drop the children off with various caretakers for days on end and not pick them up and could not be contacted. When Ana would leave Lazaro with the caretakers, he appeared skinny and malnourished. The caretakers would feed him and fatten him up. On one occasion, when Lazaro required medical attention and Ana did not respond to the caretaker's calls, he took Lazaro to the hospital and later contacted social services, who temporarily removed the children from Ana's custody. Now in November 1988, the children were returned to Ana. Upon his return, Lazaro weighed a healthy 20 pounds. Ana then became romantically involved with Olivier Gonzalez Mendoza. They lived with the children in a series of cheap hotels. The woman survived by taking on various jobs and by shoplifting. During this period, she struck, starved, confined emotional abuse, and systematically tortured Lazaro. His diaper was wrapped with duct tape to hold in the excrement for as long as possible. Have you ever heard that before? I've never heard that before. What the hell? Ana blamed Lazaro for her descent from riches to rags and referred to him as a bad birth. Olivia was aware of the abuse and began to participate in the abuse because it pleased Ana. According to Olivia, on the last day of October 1990, Cardona, Ana that is, severely abused Lazaro with a baseball bat. After splitting the child open, Ana locked the little boy in the closet where he had been confined for the last 2 months. The next day, Olivia opened the closet door and attempted to quiet Lazaro by frightening him. Ana came to look at the child, and then she believed she had taken his life. After dressing the child, the two women took Lazaro to a Miami Beach residence and abandoned him in some bushes where he was later found. When Ana learned that the child's body had been found, she and Olivia fled to Orlando, where they were eventually arrested. When Lazaro's body was found, he was wearing a white t-shirt with multicolored lollipops on the front, and he became known in the South Florida community as Baby Lollipops. Ana told police several stories about what happened to Lazaro, including that he had fallen off the bed and injured himself. Ana said she tried to revive Lazaro, but when she was unable, she took Lazaro to a Miami Beach residence and left him on a doorstep so that the people who owned the house could help him. Ana was charged with first-degree murder and aggravated child abuse. But the question remained, how bad was his condition? What actually happened to Lazaro? Listen to this. Brace yourself. The autopsy results revealed that Lazaro had 2 front teeth missing. They were knocked out approximately 6 months apart. Forced trauma, such as a substantial blow to the face, would cause these teeth to come out. Such a blow to the face would cause a substantial amount of pain, bleeding, and tears, along with prolonged discomfort if not addressed with proper medical care. The wound would take longer to heal for someone who was as malnourished as Lazaro. He would also have had trouble eating and speaking due to the pain from having his teeth knocked out. There was trauma on Lazaro's entire face. The injuries were not all caused at the same time. Two circles drawn on his face pointed to two anatomical areas of the skin that attached the lips to the face, called the frenulum. I'm reading you the autopsy report because it explains the severity of what happened. It gets worse. Keep listening. The frenulum was torn to the point where the lips detached. There are two ways this detachment can occur. A dentist would remove it with anesthesia, which makes sense, or a serious blow to the mouth would also cause this. This condition would cause severe pain. Lazaro would not be able to move his lips. Eating would be very painful. Even talking would hurt. Nevertheless, Lazaro, being severely malnourished, would feel compelled to eat even if it caused severe pain. The autopsy examination of Lazaro's body revealed that he was well below the growth, weight, and height chart for a child his age. At the time, he was 3. Dr. Heimer, the chief medical examiner, testified that when the body is malnourished, it does not have the proper building blocks, resulting in slow growth. Lazaro weighed 18 pounds, about half the normal weight of an average child his age. My son is 3, currently he weighs like 40 pounds. Wow, you see the difference? Lazaro would have been hungry and yearning for food as long as he was conscious. The autopsy further revealed that Lazaro's body was wasted. His belly was sunken, and the bones of his pelvis and individual ribs stuck out. There was very little in his digestive tract, and there was 9-month delay in his skeletal development. The pancreas indicated a lack of hydration and it was infected. This would cause Lazaro to feel a constant pain in his belly until he received medical attention. In addition, the thymus gland under the breastbone was almost non-existent. This gland helps the development of the immune system. This condition pointed to a much stressed immune system. Lazaro's left arm had undergone ossification. That is when scarred muscle has transformed into bone. His elbow was fixed at a 90-degree angle. His left humerus had also undergone ossification. It was indicative of a crushing injury to the muscle that reached the surface of the bone. This meant that his injury also crushed the nerves in the area, causing him chronic pain every time he was touched in that area. Lazaro's legs were asymmetric. His right leg was smaller than the left leg. The left leg was bigger because it had blood accumulation that resulted from some type of blunt injury to that leg. This would cause him to feel pain if he moved his left knee. It would be painful to walk and tender to the touch until such time that it would heal. However, the autopsy revealed fresh injuries to the left leg that would have aggravated the healing of the crushed nerves and muscles. When Dr. Hyman examined Lazaro's ribcage, he found a collection of blood caused by a blunt force injury to the lower chest. He said that the blunt injury must have been substantial as it crushed tissue and caused bruising all the way down to his ribs. The soft tissue and muscle were crushed, and there was blood seeping from the soft tissue. This indicated that the injury had not healed at the time of death. This condition would have caused a throbbing pain to the victim on the entire left side of his chest. There was blood under the palm of Lazaro's left hand, which indicated a blunt injury had occurred. There was muscle ossification, which meant it took weeks or months to heal. In addition, there was blood on the backside of the left hand from a more recently inflicted injury. This was also indicative of a blunt injury. Dr. Heimer explained that in receiving the injury, it would have caused pain in the whole arm. This meant that the pain in Lazaro's left hand magnified the pain he already felt on the rest of his left arm. Dr. Heimer testified that touching the victim's front right forearm felt like bone crunching. The examination revealed a splintered ulna, the bone that runs inside of the arm. The splinter was in the middle of the ulna, consistent with a direct impact on the forearm. In order to receive this injury, he would have had to lift and turn his arm, which is indicative that he was in a defensive position when he received his wound. Furthermore, because the bones of a child this age are more pliable than that of an adult, it would require a substantial amount of force to the right forearm in order for the ulna to splinter as it had. Assuming there was no medical attention given, this would be an escalating pain that would last for hours, and any motion would intensify the pain. It's as if this child she left no stone unturned. Now, when he was found, he was wearing a diaper. The diaper was wrapped with multiple layers of synthetic duct tape. The diaper was soiled to the extent that it almost formed a cast of excrement around the victim's pelvis. When the excrement was removed and the area cleaned, an infection and a skin rash on the scrotum and tip was revealed. Dr. Heimer explained that the infection occurred as a result of the area not being kept dry. This would cause the skin to break down and excrement full of bacteria to enter the broken skin. The tip of the penis had scar tissue from this infection, indicating to the doctor that there was difficulty in urinating. Lazaro would have felt a burning sensation when urinating, along with pain every time he moved, as the skin in that area was so raw that the nerves were exposed. Lazaro's left shoulder had a deep injury. There were multiple pressure sores on his left ear, the back and top of his neck, and left side of his scalp. These sores would be painful as the initial stages would cause a breakdown of the skin and nerve exposure. These sores were indicative of having the child restrained in one position for long periods of time. Lazaro's face had an injury consistent with a third-degree burn. There was an abrasion on his forehead consistent with a blunt injury. On his right shoulder, there was an old injury that was not visible externally. Lazaro's forehead was asymmetric. It felt firm and rubbery, which is indicative of prior trauma. The pain would have been prolonged until the injury could heal. This injury had not healed when Lazaro died. The soft tissue around his right eye showed evidence of a right cheek blunt force injury. Blood accumulation inside the eye was consistent with some object splitting the skin. This injury was more recent than the injury found on his forehead. The back of Lazaro's head had an injury as a result of a blunt object that was in the process of healing. This type of injury would have taken days or weeks to heal. Now, without medical treatment, Lazaro would have felt pain for days until the injury healed. There was also a laceration on the left side of his head associated with trauma and was sore where infection had already begun. There was no evidence of medical treatment for this injury, and Lazaro would have felt pain from it until it healed. His right buttock had a deep injury that was not initially visible until the autopsy was performed, due to the amount of crusted excrement in his long, unchanged diaper. The injury was consistent with the injuries found on his chest, leg, shoulder, foot, and hand. This injury was approximately 1 inch in diameter deep in the buttock muscle. The autopsy of the skull revealed a skeletal fracture from the middle of the skull to the left eye socket. And at this point, you're probably thinking, when does it stop? Make it end. It doesn't. This autopsy just keeps going and going. Nerve damage had occurred to the point where Lazaro would have lost his sense of smell. I've never heard that before. Never. In all, like if you look at my 3 channels, I think I've made maybe 300 videos, right? And when they're like 20 minutes to an hour each, that's a lot of videos. I've never heard anyone, child, man, woman, adult, whatever, to lose this sense of smell. The autopsy goes on to say the beginning stages of meningitis were evident. Blood accumulated as a result of the fracture on the brain, which would have caused Lazaro to experience excruciating headaches. The autopsy further revealed that the fracture on the middle of the skull was approximately hours to days old, and the additional collection of blood to the left side of the brain was a subdural hematoma that was consistent with the skull fracture. Lazaro also suffered from a partial tearing of nerve tissue in the brain called the corpus callosum. So when I was reading the autopsy, which I just did to you, that's not the end of it. It keeps going and going and going. It's as if she deliberately abused every inch of his body. The autopsy concluded that a total of 41 injuries culminated in his death. Every part of his body was in excruciating pain for days, weeks, and months until he died. This child was malnourished, which made the pain even worse and caused the healing process from the inflicted wounds to be delayed. He was never given medical attention. His little body was wasted with a number of infections, crushed nerves and bones, and the beginning stages of meningitis. In fact, it was painful for him just to breathe. It would have been painful for him to eat, which given his emaciated body didn't happen often. It would have been painful for him to urinate. I mean, you can't even comprehend it. I mean, he was conscious during the infliction of all these wounds, and during the times he was restrained, and he was conscious until the injury to his head, which was inflicted on October the 31st, 1990. This caused him to come in and out of consciousness until he died. All of these acts, including the final injury, show that this murder was conscienceless, pitiless, and unnecessarily torturous to the victim. Before I conclude on the story and tell you everything else that happened, what do you think Anna's punishment should be? Anna and Olivia, you tell me. Now, when Anna was arrested in Orlando, she gave statements that she abused Lazaro and that Olivia was at work when he died. It was her plan to drop off the body in Miami Beach and that Olivia simply went along with it. Prior to her relationship with Olivia, Lazaro and his siblings were removed from Olivia's care. Martha Fleitas was one of Lazaro's caretakers. She testified that Lazaro looked skinny and much smaller than the average child his age. When Anna gave Lazaro to Fleitas to watch him in 1988, Fleitas fed him mashed malanga to fatten him up. After she returned Lazaro to Anna, she never saw him again. Carlos Lima testified that he also took care of Lazaro on several occasions. Anna would leave her children with him and disappear for days. When he called her, she would curse at him for disturbing her. When he paged her, she would not call him back, even after he paged her 911. Initially, Lazaro appeared to be a bouncing baby boy full of energy and life. He also ate well and took his bottle. When Lazaro needed medical attention, Mr. Lima took him to the Miami hospital. Anna even refused to visit Lazaro after she cursed at Mr. Lima for taking him to the hospital. Mr. Lima also testified that he contacted social services because Anna didn't care for her children and was indifferent to Lazaro. Mr. Lima eventually got temporary custody of the children from the social services for about 1.5 months. That decision was ultimately reversed and the children were given back to Anna, and Mr. Lima never saw them again. Susie Hernandez also testified that she was a friend of Fidel Figueroa, Lazaro's father. She would also look after Lazaro. She testified that he was skinny and she would try to feed him. His ribs were sunken. She decided along with Mr. Lima to take him to social services. She said Anna did not treat Lazaro well. He was skinny, dirty and smelly. Fred Quintero also testified that he worked at the Olympia Motel in 1989 when Anna lived there with her children and Olivia. Lazaro was always in the corner, very skinny, and he looked scared. His mattress had been urinated on and smelled. Mr. Quintero testified that on multiple occasions he saw Anna drag Lazaro on the stairs, his legs bouncing off the steps. He saw the door close on Lazaro's arm. He testified that he saw Anna discipline Lazaro by abusing him severely. He described the boy as skin over bones. He said Anna was never affectionate to Lazaro the way she was to her daughter. Christina Quintero Howard testified that in 1989 she was married to Fred Quintero, who was a handyman and desk attendant at the motel. Sometimes she would pick him up from the motel when he finished work. While she was in the lobby waiting for Fred, she saw Lazaro on 2 occasions. She heard screaming in the lobby and saw Anna pulling a skinny, filthy child across the lobby. Mrs. Quintero was so troubled by seeing Anna pulling Lazaro that she would go outside to wait for her husband. She couldn't bear watching it. And it was at this point where there's more witness statements and there's so much more to the story, I couldn't do it. By this point, I had had enough. So, to conclude, Olivia, the girlfriend, had testified against Anna and returned for a 40-year sentence for second-degree murder. Although Olivia admitted helping abusing the boy and helping dump the body in Miami, she apparently was able to place the primary blame on Anna. So on April the 1st, 1992, Anna was sentenced to death. But check this. This cow appealed her decision and it was successful. It wasn't successful that she was released. It was successful that she would be retried. And in 2011, what happened? She was retried and she was resentenced to death. I have no idea what to say. I've never read a report like that ever. On my other channel, where I show the interrogations, I get the reports for that more than this channel because they come like as a package. So I've seen some shit in my day. Autopsy reports are normally 10 to 15 pages long, most of it medical jargon I don't understand. You see the chemical levels of the deceased, and then you see a description from the doctor on what they observe. Everything I read is direct from the doctor. Eye, hands, ribs, back, neck, skull, ulna, and that freelum, whatever it's called. I don't remember what it was. He mentioned body parts I've never even heard of. I think what's important in this story, I asked you a question earlier. It doesn't matter what the decision was on Anna. I think this story is about Lazaro. Anna, you know what? She's going to be sentenced to death, and may she be cursed by God. But the thing about this story is he was born in 1987. I was born in 1987. He died at the age of 3. My son is age 3. He weighed half my son's weight. My son is quite tall for his age, but if you weigh half as much as someone in any human context, there's a problem. One thing I didn't mention was that Anna and Olivier were both cocaine and crack addicts. Whether you believe in heaven or hell, may Lazaro shine high forever. I do believe in the infinite. I wish him infinite bliss. Thank you for watching.